Hey guys, welcome back to Lee's Unpopular Opinions podcast, where I give my unpopular opinions, thoughts, and hot takes on things. First off, I want to give you guys a big thank you to any new subscribers and listeners to the podcast and stuff. I really appreciate all of you guys. And also, guys, I am literally so sorry that it took me forever to post this. I am so freaking sorry. Like literally I'm so sorry. Busy stuff came up and I had to attend to it and put this podcast on the back burner for a second. Like I was so busy. Like okay, so let me explain. Um so essentially, I finished college in December 2020. And like I told you guys, I pretty much finished college and essentially graduated. But I failed a class at the end of the semester and I had to retake that class this semester because it was only offered every other semester. So I had to wait the whole year. I had to take it 2 semesters later when I failed it, which was the fall semester that just passed this fall 2021. And so yeah, I had to retake it, and so I had to study hard this semester and just focus on that class. So I was so focused on studying for that class, getting a good grade in that class, that I kind of neglected the podcast and kind of put you know that class as my priority, which I mean makes sense, like school first and stuff, education first and all. But I graduated now, so that's the past. I just graduated this past weekend, so um on the 17th. So I graduated college, had this big ceremony, it was awesome. But anyway, that's besides the point. Oh, and also in addition to that class, I also had the senior design class where we turn in our final projects for that class, and we have to pass that class to graduate. And my professor was kind of and I mean I seldom blame the professor, stuff like that, because I'm such a good student, but sometimes professors can be a bit much and stuff like that. Usually I'm like, okay, is it my fault that I failed this class? Is it my fault that I passed this class? Like I'm a very objective person, but this particular professor, he was so picky, and he had so many issues with the project that me and my colleague or partner for the project kept doing. So we had to keep getting a grade extension to finish it by we had to finish it by the new extension deadline, and then he finally passed us. But I need to focus on that as well, which is why I kind of put this podcast on the back burner for a second. So yeah, luckily he finally passed us, and I also passed that other class that I failed before. So I passed the senior design class and the other class. So yeah, I passed and I graduated. So yeah, I don't know if I told you guys, but I attended UMES, University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I am from Maryland, and Maryland is a state in the USA, because I know I have a couple non non-American listeners. I know I've seen a couple places that I've seen people listening in from Norway, India, Spain. I think I saw Portugal on there, from the UK and stuff like that, Germany. So I have a lot of podcast listeners. So just wanted to let you guys know. But anyway, so yeah, I recently just graduated from college, and yay, woohoo, go Hawks! Hawks is our mascot, a hawk. So yeah, go Hawks. And but yeah, it was just basically to wrap everything up. It was just because I didn't finish two classes, so I had to finish that. But I'm done now, and now from now on, I'm going to be posting episodes bi-weekly every 2 weeks. I promise you guys. Yeah, I should be posting every 2 weeks from now on. I was just so busy before with classes and trying to finish it because like I said, school comes first. But now that I'm done with school and stuff like that, I have so much more time for other things. So please stay tuned because I definitely have a lot more coming. And now that all of that's said and done, let's get into today's podcast. So today we're going to talk about the difference between race as a racial identity versus making your race your personality. There is a huge difference between your racial identity and your personality, and people tend to get the two confused. Your race is not your personality. There is a difference between your personality and what you identify as racially. Your personality is not what determines your blackness, and your blackness is not what determines your personality. Your race is what determines your race, essentially, or you know, or your whatever your race is, that's what determines your race, not your personality. When it comes to being black, to me, I feel like the only thing that you need proof of for your blackness is, well, your blackness. You don't need to prove where you come from or what you listen to or how you talk or how you walk or whatever the case may be to prove that you're a black person. You know what I mean? And it's like, the only thing that determines your race is your race, not your personality. And honestly, screw anybody that tries to gatekeep blackness. That's just ridiculous. And also, I'm going to also be talking about some of the certain things that woke people do that I personally find to be very annoying. Well, like I always do. But anyway, people act like being black is a feeling as opposed to just a race. And honestly, to me, it's ridiculous. And being like where you're from or like what you do or how you talk or how you walk doesn't make you any more black or any less black. People are just people. And your race is just your race. I have a couple of main points that I'm going to be making throughout this episode as well. So let me start off with my first point, which is basically kind of what I just said, in that people think that being black is a personality trait, and it's not. They think that you can tell whether someone is or isn't black, but just by like their characteristics or their personality. And to me, that's dumb. And like, okay, yeah, we have certain things in our community that are very popular in our community that we are like familiar with, but still, it's not a personality trait. Like, I mean, I get like how like people will have like those jokes on like black Twitter, like LOL, black moms be like, and stuff like that, or just something like that are like very, very like common amongst like black mothers or stuff like that, or how like people will say there's always that one black auntie that brings butter pecan pie to the Thanksgiving, blah blah blah, or stuff like funny jokes and stuff like that. Like, okay, yeah, I get like the funny jokes and stuff, but blackness isn't a personality trait. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to joke around and make fun jokes about your community and blah blah, but I just really want to reiterate that I don't think it's a personality trait. Some people think that like talking a certain way or liking certain interests and stuff like that, or liking things that are stereotypically known as things that black people like and stuff like that is what determines your blackness, but that's not true. The only thing that can make you black is whether you are or are not like consistent, or whether you do or do not have like black ancestry. That's what makes you black, not your personality. To some people, their entire personality is surrounded by the fact that they're black, and that's annoying to me. To me, being black is just something that I am. Like, it's not my personality, it's just my race. Like, that's just what I am. I'm just, I'm a black person. It's not my entire personality. It's just what my race is. And I don't base my entire personality around the fact that I'm black. And I mean, like I said, I get that being black is a huge part of who you are, because black people constantly have to deal with discrimination. So their experiences with that make a huge part of who they are, and I totally get that and I completely understand that. And also, some people are just really proud of their race and want to show that off, and that's okay too. It's okay to be proud of where you're from and who you are, and it's great to be proud of that. And I get that. Given all the adversity and hardships that us black people deal with, it makes sense to want to uplift your race, and I totally understand that. But like, still, I just think it's kind of annoying that there are people out there that have like their entire personality revolve around the fact that they're black. Like, it's annoying to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's like people who say like, oh, I get I do this way because of the fact that I'm black, or I do this because, just to show that I'm so black, or I'm just so black. Am I right? Yeah, that's why I do this, because, I'm a black person. Like, stuff like that. Like, that's annoying to me. Like, if I personally made a diagram of my personality, there would be like multiple different squares within that diagram about who I am and what I like to do and what I'm interested in. Like, the squares in the diagram would include my personality and my interests. Like, for example, like, I like to watch TV comedies like The Office, Parks and Recreation, Scrubs, Sister Sister, That's a Raven, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Martin. I also like really funny and entertaining like reality shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, Bad Girls Club, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Flavor of Love, stuff like that. Like, I also like cartoons and stuff like Sponge. Oop, the microphone almost fell. Sorry. The the mic almost oop, let me yeah, the mic kind of fell. Let me change that. But anyway, I also like fun like cartoons and stuff like SpongeBob, Phineas and Ferb and stuff like that. I'm trying to get more into anime as well. I haven't like watch that much, but I do want to start getting more into anime. And like for celebrities, I like Doja Cat, I like Megan Thee Stallion, I like their music. I like Paris Hilton, Kylie Jenner, Kim K. I think they're funny and they're entertaining on their show too, and I like their makeup and stuff. I like Emma Chamberlain and Antonio Garza. They're really funny YouTubers. I like Cardi B. I think she's really funny. I like Justin Bieber. I really like Rihanna. I like Normani. I like her personality and like her music and stuff. I like Georgia Smith. I like Sophia Richie and Nicole Richie and stuff. A Nicole Richie show, Candidly Nicole, was also a really funny reality TV show that I like to watch and stuff. Like I like a whole bunch of stuff and a whole bunch of people. Um I like, oh yeah, and I like Justine Sky. I like a lot of things and like a lot of like music and stuff like that. Different personal, just different interests and stuff that I'm in. Like in terms of like what I watch, celebrities that I like, or stuff like that. Like even like and in terms of like I don't know other parts of my personality, I like to knit. Like well, not necessarily knit, but crochet. I like to crochet from time to time. I've made like hats and scarves and stuff. Maybe I'll show that off later. I don't know how since it's a podcast, but I don't know. Maybe I'll show that off on the Instagram. I'll show you guys some of the stuff I've knitted before. But anyway, um, I love math. Actually, speaking of which, I don't know if I told you guys this, but I quit my job in retail and I work as a math tutor now. I remember mentioning one time in one episode, I can't remember where, that I worked in retail in this like department store and stuff, but I quit that. And I work as a math tutor now. I just love math so much. I mean, me having like my major is engineering, I just really love math. I'm a numbers girl. I totally love math and stuff like that. So yeah, and also, I'm trying to get eventually more involved into video games in addition to getting involved with anime. I really like video games, but I don't know where to start. And I want to get more involved in that too. I like Marvel movies. I like superhero movies like Marvel and movies and stuff. I like to write. I write a lot whenever I'm feeling away about something. I love writing. Actually, my love for writing inspired me to start this podcast because I wanted to put my thoughts into words. Also in terms of like characteristics about me, I'm a really nice and sweet person. I'm insanely nice, very considerate. I'm super understanding and stuff. I pick up easily on things. Like see how like in terms of my personality, I can just like talk on and on and on about like different things about me and like my interests and stuff that I like and things of that nature. Like I can just go on and on. I feel like if other like if other black people made the same diagram that I was talking about and like different squares in their diagram on like their personality, they would say stuff like, oh, well, I like this celebrity because I'm black, and I like this artist because I'm black. I like this person because I'm black. I like this show because I'm black. I like this influencer because she's black and I'm black. I like this makeup brand because a black person made it. I like this show because a lot of black people are in it. I talk this way because this way is like a way of speaking in my culture, or which actually no, that doesn't really count. I mean, that makes sense. If you're from a certain way and that's all you know about how to speak, then obviously that's how people are going to speak. But that's besides the point, and maybe a different point. Or but all the other points, like are still valid. But besides the speaking part, scratch that. But other points like, oh, I like this trend because I see a lot of black people doing it, or I like this because a whole bunch of black people did it. Like, and honestly, okay, I get like supporting your people and stuff. Like I get like supporting small black businesses and stuff like that. Like I get that. I get the importance of that. And I get wanting to support your community and wanting to support your people and like circulate cash flow in the black community. I get that. And I also get the excitement of seeing someone who represents you and how you want to support that person. Like kind of like how when Rihanna was the first black woman to ever be on the cover of the Christian Dior, I think, or be the face of Christian Dior, the brand. That's a really big milestone, and I get that people are going to love people for that and support the people who represent them. I get that, but what I don't get, what I just don't get is people making your entire personality revolve around the fact that they're black. Like I don't get that. I mean, personally, me, I like things just to like them, not because of who is behind said thing. And like I said, it's cool like when people make milestones and stuff, like Rihanna, like I just said, like Rihanna being the first black woman of the Christian Dior brand, or Black Panther having like the most amount of like people of color superheroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and stuff like that, or in the movie or whatever. Like, I'm sure to a lot of like Black Marvel fans that really meant a lot to them to see their people represented to that extension of a degree. Like, I'm sure stuff like that is so cool and totally awesome, and I get being so hyped and excited about that and about representation. But also, I feel like people should just like things just to like them, not because it's popular in the Black community or because a Black person did it, or because like that doesn't determine whether it's good or bad. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't get how people can think like that. Like all the time about everything. Like the representation thing I get, but I just don't get the people who think like that about everything. And also, I don't get the people that think that like how you like talk and walk make you like Black or not. Like, remember in my one episode titled like pro Blackness is cool, hating other races is not? Remember how I said how sometimes people think that talking a certain way or walking a certain way is what does and doesn't make you Black, and how like and when like how sometimes when I was in middle school, people would tell me I quote unquote talk like a white girl, or like I'm an Oreo, Black on the outside, white on the inside, because I speak properly and stuff like that. People think that you have to talk a certain way or speak a certain way or walk a certain way or wear certain clothes or enjoy certain interests to be considered Black. And it's just such a weird concept to me. Like, why am I white just because my iPod had like Paramore on it in middle school? Or, and I listen to like rap too. I listen to R&B too, but I listen to like, like pop and like alternative rock and stuff like that too. Like, I like all of the genres. And like it that doesn't mean that I'm any more or less Black. You know what I mean? The only thing that determines your Blackness is if you have Black ancestry, not like your personality trait or characteristics, you know? Oh, and you know what? Maybe that's why the Black community like rags on white people who they like claim allegedly act Black so much, or allegedly are appropriating their personality to be Black. Or maybe that's why they call certain white people stuff like culture vultures, because they think like Blackness is a lifestyle and not just something that you are. So when they see someone with a lifestyle that like when the like fake deep woke person sees like a lifestyle that they have perceived to be considered like an allegedly like Black lifestyle, that they think they're trying to be Black, because to them that's what being Black is, a lifestyle, as opposed to just like a race. I mean, literally, like, oh, perfect example. Look at like the Catch Me Outside girl, the Daniel Bergoli, I think. Like the Catch Me Outside. How about that? The girl that was on Dr. Phil. And or some people will know her as her stage name, which is Bahad Bahabi. Is it Bad Baby or is it Bahad Bahabi? I mean, I think it's Bad Baby, but like they're like the way it's spelled, there's like an H after the B. So like, I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. Like, is it like BHAD bad BHABIE? So is it Bahad Bahabi, or just is it Bad Baby and it's just spelled like that? I don't know. I don't know. But whatever. But like, anyway, a lot of I don't really care for her like that. I always see her kind of angry and stuff like online, but I don't pay too much attention to her. Sometimes I would like see stuff about her, but I don't pay much attention to her. She seems kind of angry, but about stuff, and she would rant all the time. But I mean, I don't know much about her. I don't know much about her. But anyway, a lot of people have accused her of like culturally appropriating Black women because of how she talks and walks and does her long nails and her accent and stuff. And like, I can't tell other Black people how they should or shouldn't feel. I can only tell people how I feel and speak out about the things that I feel. But honestly, I don't think she's trying to be Black. I think she's just from like those quote unquote urban environments and is just trying to be whatever she saw growing up. I don't think it's trying to be, I don't think like how like she's trying to be quote unquote, or like trying to like give off the persona, and like, cuz I know she makes music too, the persona of like quote unquote hood. I don't think being hood and being Black is like interchangeable. But I guess to some woke Black people, that's all of like, to them that's how Black people act. So when they see Bad Baby or Daniel Bergoli trying to like be that, to them it's, oh, she's trying to be Black, because that's all they see, or that's how they think being Black quote unquote is. They think it's interchangeable or something. You know what I mean? And honestly, I don't think she's trying to be Black. I think that she's just trying to imitate what she saw from growing up, and stuff, because she did say they were mentioned that she's from the hood. So I guess she's trying to like emulate that, or I don't fucking know, but whatever. I don't necessarily think it's trying to be black. I think she's just trying to, act urban or whatever, or her perspective of like what urban is. I don't think the two are interchangeable, like being hood and being black. I don't think that's interchangeable. Another example, or like this one time I saw this TikTok. It was this video of this biracial kid. He was black and white. It was, you could see that he was biracial. And so he was a biracial black kid, and he was listening to Erica Badu in the background of the TikTok. And someone in the TikTok comments were saying like, "Oh, this biracial person definitely has a black mom and white dad, as opposed to a black dad and a white mom, because how else would they know about how Erica Badu is? Because obviously their black mom was blasting that throughout the blah blah blah." How would you know that? Like what? White, black, mixed, biracial, whatever. Literally anyone can listen to Erica Badu. I'm sure there are white guys out there that have listened to Erica Badu, or white girls out there that have listened to Erica Badu, in addition to black guys and black girls. Like what? Literally anyone could listen to Erica Badu. She's an established R&B and B and soul singer with hundreds of thousands of fans and all this other stuff. What correlation does listening to her music have to do with being black? Like anybody could listen to Erica Badu. It doesn't make you black. And like, she obviously she's very much more, she's prominent in the black community, and obviously she has predominantly black fans because her genre of music is predominantly like, music in the black, like music that like is very popular amongst like black people and stuff like that. And black people are like her main demographic audience and stuff. But anybody could listen to Erica Badu. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, I can just tell that this person's mom is black because he's listening to Erica Badu. Like, what is that? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, what? My second point would be that there are white people and non-black people that have traits that are like considered stereotypically black, or things that are mainly common amongst like the black community, but that doesn't mean that those white people or non-black people are trying to be black. Anybody could have the traits that I have seen woke people say are considered quote unquote stereotypically black. Like people say only black girls can have a big butt and big hips and have like a certain like quote unquote like urban or like like urban accent and stuff, or as they say black scent and stuff like that. Or like only guys like, or only black guys like listen to hip hop or can rap and wear do rags and stuff like that, like stuff that like people are stereotypically known to do. And I mean like stuff that certain races are stereotypically known to do. Even though it's stereotypically known to be more common amongst a certain race, that doesn't mean that like the white people who do that are trying to be that race. Like even though like it's stereotypically like, having wide hips and a big butt and being able to twerk and all that other stuff, or being able to rap and play basketball and stuff like that, and wear do rags, even though that stuff is stereotypically known to be a trait that is more common amongst black people, white people could have those traits too. And like woke people just have to like not be annoyed by that, or they're just gonna have to deal with that. Like, I mean, well, I can't tell people what they can and cannot be offended by, but like, people are gonna feel how they want to feel about things, and that's okay. But still, that's just kind of how I feel. Like, like certain people have like big butts and big hips, and certain people can like rap and play basketball or might wear a do rag, and that doesn't mean that like they're trying to be black or stuff. That just means that it just is what it is. Like, it's not that serious. Like, just deal, like, I mean, well, then again, I can't tell people how to feel. I can only say how I feel, but that's just how I feel. Like, there could be a white girl with big butts and big lips and stuff like that, that and or like, or has like a natural big bore, natural big lips, or like a white girl that grew up in an environment that like that talked a certain way, so she picked up on the accent, and now she has a stereotypically quote, not stereotypically, but has like a quote unquote urban accent and stuff like that, because people are like products of their environment. You know what I mean? Or there could be like a white guy that like wears a bandana or a do-rag because where he's from, that's what people do and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that he's trying to like upstage you as a black person. Like, no, you can't just like like, I mean, people can feel how they want to feel, but I think it's dumb to gatekeep shit that like other people just do because of like how they grew up and stuff, or like how their bodies naturally are, like a white girl with a big butt or big lips or a big nose and stuff. That's why I think it's stupid to like gatekeep blackness or think of blackness as like a personality trait or a characteristic, because you might be shocked to find out that there are non-black people that do what you claim is something only black people do, or non-black people or white people that have something that you claim only black people have. There are white people or like Latinos that like grew up in the hood and stuff like that. Like they talk like how they talk with the quote unquote black accent or urban accent or whatever you want to call it, or the black accent, whatever you want to call it. That there are certain white people or even Latinos or non-black people in general that talk like that because they're a product of their environment. It's not that difficult to understand. Like, you're part of your environment, you're gonna grow up how you heard people talking. So if you grew up in that environment, regardless of whether you're black or white, you're gonna start talking like that. That doesn't, like, for example, I'm black, but I grew up in the suburbs, and like I didn't grow up around like all white people, but I also didn't grow up around all black people. I grew up in a pretty mixed and diverse area. Like my neighborhood had pretty much like almost every race. So like, does that mean that? And I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in a really, like in the suburbs. So, but does that mean that black people who grew up in the suburbs, does that mean they're trying to be white because they speak like how I talk? You know what I mean? Does that mean that they're trying to be white because they grew up around certain people? Or does that mean black people that grew up in a suburban neighborhood with predominantly white people who speak in a certain like, who just speak like however they talk, or talk like how I'm talking and stuff like that? Does that mean they're trying to be white? No. Like, given that logic of like, oh, you're trying to be black because you taught like that. No, they just grew up like they'll hear like a white person that grew up in the hood and like will have a black scent as a product of their environment, as a result of the product of their environment, and then they'll see to tell that white person like, oh, you're trying to be black, you're trying to be like us. No, they just are a product of their environment. You know what I mean? Given that logic of like, you're trying to be the race that like, you're trying to like be that race just because you grew up around that, like that environment, that doesn't make any sense, because then that means that black people who grew up around white people who talk like, for example, how I talk, just kind of like the speaking properly thing, then that means that those black people are trying to be white, and that's not true. People just talk how they talk because they're products of their environment. Simple. Black or white, simple as that. That goes for white people that grew up in the hood, black people that grew up in the hood, black people who grew up in the suburbs, and white people who grew up in the suburbs. People just talk how they talk. That doesn't mean that they're trying to be black just because they grew up in the hood and they're a product of their environment. And to me, honestly, it's sad that people think it's so natural, that like the natural way for black people to speak is to speak in that sense. I mean, if you do speak like that because it's a product of your environment, like the black accent and the hood accent or whatever, that's fine. You're a product of your environment. It's whatever. But it's kind of sad that people think it's natural, or like for black people to speak that way, or people have to speak that way because like, or speaking like ebonics and stuff like that. It's sad that there are black people or just woke people in general that think that speaking English properly is a white trait, and speaking hood is, and like speaking ebonics is like the natural way that black people speak and stuff. That's offensive to me in itself, because you end up thinking that like black people are incapable of like speaking properly or speaking intelligent and stuff. You know what I mean? I always thought that was kind of an offensive thing to say, that speaking like in an urban way or like speaking ebonics is quote unquote being black, and then speaking properly is being white. Anybody can speak properly, anybody can speak ebonics. It just depends on like where you're from and stuff like that. Like, it's not like to me, I mean, obviously yes, it's more common amongst like the black community to speak in ebonics and speak with a black accent, but still, like, I always used to get a little offended by that, because it's like, so what, because I'm black I can't speak properly? That's just kind of like a hurtful comment to me. So I think it's kind of dumb for people to even think in itself that just because um that, like, I think it's kind of offensive in itself to say that be, speaking in a like with like in a hood way is the black way, but then speaking because when you say you're speaking like with ebonics, you're speaking like with the black accent and stuff in the urban way, is like when you're saying that that's like the black way, then that means you're saying that like speaking properly is the white way, and there's no white or black way to speak. It's just like, people just talk how they talk. It's just how it is. It doesn't mean that is if you meet a white person that speaks a certain way, maybe they just grew up around that environment, you know? And usually you can tell when accents are regular versus when they're being forced. And there really are just some white people out there that grew up in the hood and are products of their environment. Simple. And also, in regards to like the tanning thing or like the tanning versus blackface debate and stuff, there really are white people out there that tan very well. I'm not saying that there are people who don't over tan to the point where like it could be borderline considered borderline blackface or whatever you want to call it and stuff. But like I feel like the threshold for like blackface has like increased greatly to the point that like any white person that isn't like vampire pale white is like considered blackface, and that's just not true. There really are white people out there that just tan very well, or they could possibly share the same shade as a very light black person. Not all white people are 100% pale. Like Europe is an entire continent full of like Europeans or people with different European like ancestry and stuff like that. And like it's an entire continent filled with countries of people that are all European and stuff like that. So I'm sure Europe can be very diverse, and there is no one shade that defines what all European descended or all white people look like. Like there's no one shade for that. There's no one way to like look white. You know what I mean? And I always wondered, if we can accept that not all black people have the same shade, then why can't we accept that not all white people have the same shade? Like some of the stuff that y'all consider blackface online is stuff that like you could walk down the street in like the summer, like you could literally walk down the street in Maryland or like in like the tourist part of DC and literally see white girls like that. Like you could go up to let me think. You could go up to let me think of one. Oh, Ocean. Actually, no. You could go down to Ocean City in Maryland or Virginia Beach or just any like populated place in like the summertime of like the summertime in Maryland or the summertime in Washington D.C. and just like generically see white girls that are tanning and stuff like that. Like some of the stuff that y'all consider to be blackface, I'm like I could walk down the street and see a white girl like that. That's not no fucking blackface. Like what? That's not no blackfishing. Like that doesn't mean like what? That doesn't mean anything. Like there's no one way to look white, and if there's lots of different shades of black people, there could also be different shades of white people. If we can accept that not all black people have the same shade, why can't we accept that not all white people have the same shade? You know, and there are also like Southern Asians and stuff, such as like Indians and stuff that have brown skin and they don't have a lick of blackness in them. Like there are non black people who they're not white, but they're not black either. Like for example, like like Southern Asian, not Southeast, but I think Southern Asians, like for example, Indian stuff, or like even like Middle Easterns, like other Middle Easterns, like Pakistanians and stuff like that, or Saudi Arabians and stuff that have like brown skin, but don't have, but are not black. Like they could share the same skin as someone who's black, but they're not black. You know what I mean? And like that doesn't mean that like they're trying to like it's obvious that what I'm trying to say is sorry, sometimes I feel like I like let me bring it back to my point. What I'm trying to say is like even though like the black community like we most commonly have brown skin, there are other races and other ethnicities out there that aren't black and have brown skin is the point I'm trying to make. Like obviously like you know our race mainly has like the most amount of people with like brown skin and stuff, but there are non-black people that have brown skin. What are they trying to be black? No, they can't help it. They have brown skin. There are people in like like in different parts of the country, or not the country, different parts of different continents that are not black but just have like tan skin or brown skin or like darker skin than the average white person, and they don't have a lick of black ancestry or blackness in them whatsoever. Not all white people who are like slightly like tanner than a pale white person, or not all non-black people that aren't pale white are trying to be black. That's not true. Like you know what I mean? People swear that like any white person who is a little more tan than most white people is someone who's blackfishing. They blame anyone who is tan as blackfishing, and it's very annoying to me because it's not true. Some white people just have a tan, and it's simple as that. I mean, yes, some white girls go sun tanning, but some white people just really do tan well and like take the skin in very well. You know, it's simple. Like you know what I mean? That's just how it is. White people can't just like avoid the sun and avoid tanning just so black woke people can feel like special and stuff. Like if the sun is out and they tan, they literally can't do anything about that. People are gonna go out and tan. They can't just avoid the sun. So it's like, like whatever, cry about it. Like, why are woke people so pissed about just like tanning? Like, I mean, yeah, okay, blackfishing, I get the conversations about it, but some people really are just tanning. Like, have y'all ever really seen white people outside of the internet? Some people really do tan like a lot, or even non-black people. Like, some people have tan skin, some people have brown skin, and they're not black. I'm not saying like a white person is going to have the same skin tone as fucking Idris Elba. Like, but I am saying like some white people tan, or like some people white people can naturally tan and stuff like that. And that's okay. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, yes, black people obviously we have brown skin, and but when it comes to like non-black people and like other people of color, we're not the like us black people of color, we're not the only people of color that have brown skin. Like Indians can have brown skin. I've seen other Middle Easterns that can have like brown skin and stuff like that. Like we're not the only group of people of color that can have brown skin. That doesn't mean every single white person or non-black person that has brown skin or tan skin is automatically blackfishing. You know what I mean? Our race, obviously, the black race, like predominantly has like brown skin, but there are people that have zero black blood or zero black ancestry in them whatsoever that either A, tan easily, or B, have brown skin. I've seen white girls in my high school who tan easily. I've seen like Indians and other Middle Easterns and stuff like that who tan easily and have like olive brown skin and so on and so forth. Black people aren't the only one in the world with brown skin or tan skin and stuff like that. And I feel like the wokesters and like the woke people and stuff like that, they just have to deal with that. Simple. Yeah, so like I said, people are products of their environment. So girls who are like white and speak hood, quote unquote, or have like a black scent are or and who grew up in those like environments and stuff like that and grew up in the hood, quote unquote, are just reacting to their environment. And black girls too. Like, even black people or white people who grew up in the hood, they're gonna speak hood because they grew up in those environments. Or black people or white people who grew up in the suburbs, they're gonna speak how suburban people speak because they grew up in that environment. Like the same way I'm black and I grew up in the suburbs, so I speak how I speak or whatever, is the same way white girls who grew up in the hood will speak however they speak in the hood. Like, you know what I mean? And that's not offensive. It's just how they grew up and stuff like that. Not everything is like your blackness being taken away from you. When you see white girls who talk this way, it's not taking anything away from your culture. It just means they speak that way because it's a product of their environment. It's nothing personal. People swear their blackness is like a fragile thing that can be taken away from them. And to me, it's ridiculous. I mean, I guess that since they think blackness is so like fragile, they think that someone that has the same traits as them are like imitating them in some sense. And it doesn't make any sense. People like have like hated on like white people so badly that they hate to share like literally any trait with the white person. They think that sharing remotely any trait with the white person is like, oh, a threat to their blackness and stuff, and it doesn't make any sense. Like there are white people who grew up poor, there are white people who can tan, there are white people who grew up in like the impoverished communities or in the hood and stuff like that, or in urban environments and stuff like that. There are white girls with big butts, there are white guys that can rap, there are white guys that play basketball and stuff like that. And there's also white people that, even though they don't have like 4C coily curly hair like that, they don't have bone straight hair either. There are white people out there that have like naturally curly hair. That doesn't make them black or anything either. You know what I mean? You can't just have like such a closed-minded idea on what race is and isn't, is and is not, that you throw fits every time you see a white person with a trait that you think only black people have. I have seen white people with naturally curly hair and with big butts and stuff like that. Like obviously not as curly and as coily as like black women, like 4A, 4C hair. But I've seen white girls with like some curly-ish hair. Like not all white girls have like bone straight hair. Like I've seen white girls with some thick curly hair. Like Do you guys remember that girl from American Pie? What was her name? Vicky's friend. Oh, Jessica. Her name was Jessica. Have you guys ever watched the movie American Pie? Um, Vicky's friend. Her name was Jessica. Go on Google and look up Jessica from American Pie. She had like this thick, curly, like honey blonde, brownish hair, and like she has curly hair, and she's a complete another white girl. Or look at like DJ Tanner from Full House when she was younger. Didn't she have like curly ish hair? You know what I mean? You can go on Google. Well, actually, let me look it up because I'm pretty sure. Hold on. Just give me 1 second. I'm about to look it up on Google because didn't DJ Tanner have. Just a second. DJ Tanner. I'm about to look it up on my phone. DJ Tanner Young. Young. Yeah, like when she was young, she had like the kind of like thickish, curly-ish kind of hair, like kind of like Madonna looking hair. If you look up like DJ Tanner Young or DJ Tanner Full House Young, she kind of had like this curly, like like brunette hair and stuff like that. Like DJ Tanner from Full House, like you know what I mean? I know I have like some non-American listeners, like I said before. Yeah, just go on Google if you look up like American Pie Jessica from American Pie, or if you look up DJ Tanner from Full House, you guys will see who I'm talking about. But yeah, so when those girls they have curly hair, and it's not as curly like I said as like an afro, but it's still curly hair. Like not all white girls have like bone straight hair. You know what I mean? And then I've even seen like fake woke people gatekeep stupid shit. Like who can and cannot use a TikTok sound? Who cares? Like people gatekeep stuff on TikTok and stuff. Like I've seen people gatekeep who can and cannot use a TikTok sound, or who can and cannot engage in a trend on TikTok, or who can and cannot dance to certain TikTok sounds and stuff like that, and stuff like that. And it's like, for what? If a trend is popular on social media, different people are gonna want to do it, and that's just how it is. It's never that serious. I'm pretty sure your blackness will still be intact if white people dance to songs that are made by a black person, or if they have fun with TikTok sounds that were originally originated by black people. Not everything is an attack on your blackness, you know? Um my next point, my third point would be um we don't all like look the same or act the same. And we all black people, we're not a monolith. You know what I'm saying? We don't all look the same, we don't all act the same, we're not all going to be the same way. And that's okay. That doesn't make any one person any another person any more or any less black than another person. To me, the worst of the worst are the people who feel like they can like quote unquote kick people out of the black community. Regardless of what they look like, black people are black, and that was regardless of whether they're like albino, or whether they're really really light skinned, or whether they're like biracial or stuff like that, or like regardless of what people look like, black people are black people, and other people have to accept that. People can't just kick people out of the black community because they're like, oh, you're so light skinned, you're not black enough, blah blah blah. And this is coming from a dark skinned person saying this. Like, I definitely believe light skinned people have privilege and stuff like that, because like there is light skin privilege, like it's definitely a thing. But like I don't agree with people who just kind of kick black people out of the black community. And this is coming from a dark skinned person. Like I am literally as dark as the girl on the cover for this thing, like the little like cartoon thing that I made. I'm literally as dark as her in real life. And honestly, I don't think it's fair that some people will like be in like a light skinned person's comments online on TikTok, on Instagram, and be like, oh, you're way too light to be black and stuff like that, or you're not black enough for she's biracial and blah blah. It's like, no, you can't just kick people out of the black community regardless of what they look like. They are that, like they're black, and you have to accept that. Like honestly, they can't control what they look like. It's not that serious. Like people, like I remember I even saw this TikTok of like this Latina, and she was talking about her experience. She could pass for a white girl, like she looks, white. She doesn't look Latina, and like people were like, "Oh, she's not really Latina. She's a gringa or whatever." And gringa is, I guess, like slang in Spanish for like an American girl, or like a just an American like an American white person. They were like, "Oh no, 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 she's not Latina, she's gringa," and all this other stuff. And she was talking about her experiences, and it pisses me off and stuff because it's just like that's so unfair. Like to her, like who are you to tell her who she is? She came out the womb looking how she looks. She can't help it. Like if that's what she looks like, that's what she looks like. You know what I mean? She was talking about her experience with like growing up looking like white, and she would talk about how like she talked about how like nobody believed her when she said she was Latina, and how like people thought she wasn't Latina, and like that's so like I feel for her and I feel bad for her because I'm just like it's so annoying. Like if she's Latina, and you may not realize that, but there are some Latinas that really may look like her and stuff like that. And you may not realize that there are Latinas that look like her, but there are, and you just have to deal with that. And the same thing with like light skinned black people or biracial black people. Some people like look the way they look, and it may not be what you're accustomed to in regards to how black people look or stuff like that. But you have to deal with it. You can't just get up and say, "Oh, you are this race and you are not that race, or you are this ethnicity and you are not that ethnicity." Like, please stop. People cannot help what they look like. And I mean, if we want to have a conversation about like the fact that white passing people of color get privilege over like their darker skinned people of color counterparts, we can definitely have that conversation. Like colorism is a thing. And for those of you who don't know, colorism is a discrimination of dark skinned people in favor of light skinned people amongst like the people of color, the POC community. POC means people of color. Because I know there's a lot of like I know there's a lot of non-Americans listening to this, so I just want to like make sure like I make everything clear just in case like people may or may not have known what something meant. But yeah, that's what colorism is amongst the people of color community, like darker skinned people being discriminated against in favor of lighter skinned people, or like white passing, or black people or people of color that look white and stuff. Kind of like Paula Patton. If you look her up on Google, she looks like, I mean, yeah, she kind of looks white passing, but she's still a black woman. And so like I just hate when people would look at like people like who kind of look like Paula Patton or like Kalani or something like that, and then be like, man, she's white, she's not one of us, and blah blah. Or like that girl on TikTok that I was just talking about, and talking about her experiences and how she grew up and like nobody believed her. Like that's just so unfair to them. Like who are you to kick someone out of their community, of like a community that they just naturally are a part of? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's just so messed up to me. You know what I mean? I remember I saw this other light skinned black girl with vitiligo, and she was saying that nobody believed her when she was black. Or I saw this this is all I've seen this all on TikTok. And also I saw this Asian girl that she had large eyes, and everyone says, "Oh, it's not possible that she's Asian because she has big eyes and Asian people have smaller eyes and blah blah blah." That's just so ignorant. You know what I mean? Like Asia is a continent with gazillions of countries. I'm not all Asian people are gonna look the same. Like what? Like not like like that's just so ignorant. Like for example, I'm black and I know not all black people are dark. Some black people are light. You know what I mean? Not all black people look the same. So why is it so difficult to understand that not all other races will look the same? Like not all people in the race, not all people in a race are going to look the same. It's simple. Like when I was reading these girls' stories, it just really broke my heart. Like that's so messed up that people would just kick them out of their communities like that. You know what I mean? But anyway, back to the Asian girl, so who said she had large eyes. So the Asian girl, she had large eyes, and people were saying it's not possible that she's Asian because she has such big eyes, and that's just so ignorant. Like, you know what I mean? Not all Asians have like the double eyelid thing, and like because it's very common amongst and like some Asian, but not all. Some Asians, but not all. And Asia is a literal continent full of loads of countries, and not all Asians are gonna look the same. Like Asia is so vast, so why is it that just because you saw an Asian that didn't have the double eyelid thing, that like, oh, well, they must not be Asian? Or the light skinned black girl was vitiligo, so like her skin was kind of like, so yeah, she had vitiligo, and people were like, you don't look black. Like that's just so mean. She can't help the fact that she has vitiligo, or that her skin's doing what it is that it does. That's just really mean that you could just get up and be like, oh yeah, you're not black because I don't see it or you don't look it. She can't help the fact that she has vitiligo. She can't help the fact that she's light. She was born with black ancestry, therefore she's a black person. Simple. You know? Like Honestly, traits do not and I mean, obviously, like, if you I guess that there are some people that if you look at them do kind of sort of look like white passing. Like, for example, like Rashida Jones, her dad is Quincy Jones, so a lot of people wouldn't know by looking at her like, oh hey, that's a black person. But if you look at her, she just kind of looks like a tan white girl, but still her father is a black man, thus making her a black woman. You know what I mean? Like, it's just simple. Like, you can't just sometimes you'd be surprised. Like, genetics do interesting things, and you can't just kick people out of a certain community. If they're that, they're just that. And that's what gives people, like, especially biracial people, that's what gives them identity issues, because y'all do stupid shit like that. It's so hurtful, and it's not fair to them. Traits do not determine like race. That is the thing that people like don't get. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and when I say traits, I'm talking about like, okay, obviously, like, yes, like, like I'm talking about like physical traits, but obviously, like, yes, like you can usually look at someone and determine like whether they're like white or black or this or that. But sometimes you might be wrong if they look racially ambiguous. And like you just have to respect that. Like, not all people look exactly the same. You know what I mean? Not all people from a race look exactly the same. So yeah, like we like sometimes when you look at a racially ambiguous person, their traits may not be able to visually show their race, but they're still that race. Just like Rashida Jones, you know what I mean? And people just have to, respect that and accept that. Simple. Oh, and as a little like sub point of point three, I also since we're on the topic of like biracial people and like interracial stuff, I also wanted to say like this is something that I've seen like online a lot, and I really do not like this. Have you guys ever seen like when biracial people bash like their own like white family for the sake of like TikTok likes? Have you ever seen that, like, when people are like, "Ugh, my mom's white and it's so annoying," and blah blah, or I don't know, maybe it's just a younger thing amongst the kids because they're trying to like fit in with the woke black crowd, and since they say that being white is so corny that like they're trying to fit in and they feel like inferior because like they're half white. I don't know what it is, but I feel like that's so messed up to like dish your mom or like your dad just because they're like just because they're white and you're like biracial and black and stuff like that. Like, I've seen people do that online, and I think that's dumb. It's mainly kids doing this. I don't know, maybe they're trying to fit in with woke people because woke people try to like instill in them that like being white is like bad and stuff, but it's annoying. Like, I've seen so many people like who are biracial bash their own white family for the sake of TikTok, or the white side of their family, or their white parent, or non-black parent or whatever, like for TikTok lights or whatever. And honestly, I just think that's dumb. Like, does your family like have you ever like not does your family have no structure? Like, you have to honor your family. Like, no offense, but like, I mean, I'm not saying to defend like your white parent or your non-black parent even when they're in the wrong or when they're being racist, because like, no, wrong is wrong. But like, dude, like, you have to like be respectful of your family. Like, that's your freaking parent. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, how can people like how can like how do you just join in on people bashing your family? Like, that's so messed up. Like, I don't know whether they're just like, oh, herder, people are saying it's uncool to have a white parent on TikTok, so let me join in and bash them. Like, I don't know if they have like an inferiority complex because, like I said, people saying it's like wrong to be white and stuff, so like they feel like insecure about like the fact that they're half white and half black, and maybe they're projecting or something like that. But I just feel like that's messed up. Like, you're like, who cares what social media thinks, and who cares if social media wants to drag you because you're half black, half white? Your parents gave you life. Social media didn't. Don't let social media make you feel like you're not good enough because you're biracial. Like, honestly, sometimes I'm kind of scared. I'm kind of scared for the biracial youth on social media because the way black people make them feel like they're like bad just because they're half white, that's so messed up to me. Like, honestly, that's messed up. My fourth point, the fourth point that I definitely really, really wanted to make is that people should love to be black just to love being black, not to bash others. I like I've seen this a lot, and I've seen this sentiment online a lot, that people can say stuff like for example, let me give you an example. Like people can be like, um, oh, I can't imagine not being black. I thank God that, I'm black, because I would literally die if I wasn't black. Like, oh my God, imagine not being a black person. LOL, can't relate whiteys or can't relate non-blackies. Sorry about it. Like, I feel like that's just so messed up. Like, you know what I mean? You should love being black just because you love being black, not to like bash other people or bash like non-black people. Like I remember, for example, like I saw this one girl online, and like this went viral. Like it went viral, and so many people were agreeing with her. And like, sometimes like you see so many people agree with something so stupid, or a stupid sentiment, or a stupid hot take, or a stupid opinion on social media, and you're in your head like, are there really that many hundreds of thousands of people that agree with this bullshit? Like, like sometimes you're just like so taken aback from the fact that there are that many stupid people that could like and favorite something so ridiculously dumb. So anyway, back to the point. I saw this one girl who said, "Oh, not to gatekeep blackness, but I feel bad for all the black people who didn't grow up around like black people, or who weren't in predominantly black communities, or people who knew nothing about their black culture because they grew up around white people. I grew up around black people. I grew up in the hood, and I grew up all around black people, and it was so lit and blah blah blah." I'm like, "Yo, excuse me? Like really? Can you imagine thinking that any black person who did not live how you live just wasn't living right? Like, what type of shit is that? Like, are you so insecure in your lifestyle and life that you have to validate it by saying, if you didn't live how I'm living, you missed out? Like, what? You can't just say, like, you can't just sit there and be like, you know what, this is my life and this is how I grew up and I really like it. I really enjoy it. You have to sit there and be like, anyone who's not living like I'm how I'm living, y'all are missing out, as if like your way to live life as a black person is the only way to live life as a black person. Why the excessive validation? Like, is it making up for some underlying insecurities? Are you insecure about the life you lived and how everyone views you to be like a certain thing or something like that, so you have to like make up and overcompensate for that by saying things like, oh well, this is the real way that black people should be living and stuff like that, so you don't feel like left out or like an outsider, or so you don't feel like your way of living isn't so bad and stuff like that. Like, you sit there and you treat suburban black people like they're outsiders. Like, what? Any black person who didn't grow up in the hood, or any black person who didn't grow up in the culturally black way, whatever the fuck that means, that black people grew up is like in the wrong, or somehow like outsiders are just not living right and shit like that. Like, what the fuck is that about? Like, for what? Like, you sit there and bash anyone who isn't, or bash anyone who isn't living like how you're living and is black. Like, for what? Your way of living was not the only way for black people to live. People who try to lift themselves up by putting others down are insecure, period. If you were confident in the way you live, then you wouldn't need to bash how anybody else was living. But you're insecure in the fact of how you are, so you justify it by saying this is the way to live if you're black. And if you're not living how this person lived, or you're not living how I'm living or how we're living, then you are the problem. What kind of nonsense is that? Like, you really like what? Also, like, I mean, I'm not, I hope this isn't like considered condescending or offensive. I don't mean to offend anybody. I don't know where people are or are not. And like I said, I'm a really nice person. I'm very understanding. I don't judge people from where they're from. But like I said, people are products in their environment. And I don't want to like judge anybody that like did or did not grow up in the hood and stuff like that. Like, you can't help where you're from. You can't help that you're from that community. Like, honestly, you can't help it. But just in response to that girl who said that like online, and I saw like all these positive and hundreds of thousands of people agreeing with her and responding to her, how she's like, oh, if you're white and you didn't grow up like in the hood or in the predominantly black like hood areas, like I feel bad for you and shit like that. That pisses me off. And honestly, you want to know something that I will say? No offense to people that grew up in those areas, you can't help it. And I don't think you're a certain way just because you grew up in a certain environment. Like, literally, no offense. But like, to be completely honest with you, those of us who are black and didn't grow up in the hood, like me, like I'm black and I grew up in the suburbs, those of us who are black and didn't grow up in the hood, what are we like? what exactly are those of us who didn't grow up in the hood, what are we missing out on exactly? What the fuck are we missing out on? What are we missing out on? Like, there are thousands of like Vice documentaries and stuff like that about like how dangerous like certain areas and environments in the hood can be, and then like the crime rate and stuff like that, and like how like people can get like hurt and killed, and like gang violence and gun violence and all this other stuff, or like what did we miss out on? I mean, honestly, those things could really happen anywhere. It really could happen anywhere. I don't want to say it only happens in the hood. It really could happen anywhere. But the point I'm trying to make is, what did we miss out on? The constant like hyper masculinity and stuff like that, or people and like being in gang members and stuff like that, and like what did we miss out on? The rampant like gun violence and people dying left and right, like the const like people excessively being in gang violence, living in fear that like I'm gonna get jumped, living in fear of like unsafeness, living in fear that like somebody's gonna like just living in fear and stuff like that, and like living in like the trials and tribulations of the hood. What did I miss out on? I grew up in a very nice home and environment that like didn't have much like crime rate, or didn't have much like dangerous. It wasn't a dangerous place to live. Like those of us who are black and grew up in the suburbs and did not grow up in the hood like that, please explain to me, what the fuck did we miss out on? What did we miss out on? The unsafeness, the gang violence? Like, is the hood just peaches and cane? Like, what the fuck did we miss out on? What did we miss out on? Please riddle me that. Riddle me that, honestly. No, I'm not saying I know about the hood, and I don't want to talk reckless about some place I've never lived or never had to grow up in. I mean, I went to school in like an urban area. I went to middle school there, and I'm just because I went there, like not like in middle school, doesn't mean I know everything about the hood and stuff like that. So I'm not gonna sit here and talk reckless. And also, I don't want people who are listening to this and grew up in the hood to be like, oh, Lee is gonna judge me because I grew up in the hood. No, I'm not gonna judge you. I don't judge any fucking body. I don't know y'all. Y'all don't know me. I don't judge any fucking body. I'm just responding to what excuse me, she said. Like I'm just responding to what she said. But honestly, like what did we miss out on? The constant like hyper masculinity of like black guys, and how they have to, walk a certain way and talk a certain way, and like be all like hood and thug and tough and all that other, and being like a manly man and all that other, or like the rampant homophobia, how like there is an excessive and psychotic amount of homophobia in our, well, in general there is, but there is a psychotic amount of homophobia in the black community. There's a psychotic amount of homophobia everywhere in all communities, but it is psychotic in the black community. Like, it's wild. It's wild. But like those of us who are black and did not grow up in the hood, what did we miss out on? Like, excuse me? Doesn't make any sense. Like, it's sad that our people think that the default for our communities is living in quote unquote the hood. Like, no, I didn't know that there was only one way to be black. Like, for what? It doesn't make any sense. Imagine thinking that anybody who didn't live like you was missing out on life or some shit like that, as if your life is the default. Like, no. Any black person can just grow up how they grew up, and it's just that on that, black or white or whatever. It shouldn't have to be like that. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And honestly, I acknowledge that I've seen white people, especially white people on Reddit and stuff, like I've seen them say mean things towards minorities, and I do not like that. And I don't want anyone listening to this to think that I'm siding with like racist white people or any racist person for that matter. But I've also seen overly sensitive wokester people on social media, and I don't like them either. I mean, we all have our problems and stuff, and like yes, as people of color, we have our problems, but geez, y'all are always gatekeeping blackness, and it's like I just don't understand it. Like, there's a difference between someone's race and their personality. Like, your personality does not define like your race, and also your race does not define who you are. people try so hard to combine the two and it doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? So like I just really want to point that out there, that like I get uplifting black people and stuff like that given our all of our adversary. And also I don't want to make it seem like I side with like problematic like racist white people, because like I think it's wrong to be racist and stuff, but like sometimes they just really need to chill. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just, if you love being black, that's great. That's awesome. And so do I. But you should love being black just to love being black. You shouldn't have to shit on other people in order to like love being black. I'm all for pro blackness, and I think that people should feel free to love themselves and love the race that they're in. But I feel like a huge reason as to why certain like woke people or like woke black fake deep people whatever pushed like the reason as to why we should love ourselves is because we are the only one of our kind and stuff like that. And oh, other people can't do what we do, like we're like ordained or some shit like that. And like honestly, I just don't agree with that narrative. Like, I mean, we're awesome and we're great, but I don't believe that the reason as to why we should love ourselves is because, oh, we're better than the rest. We're not better or worse than anybody. We're just ourselves and we're awesome. You know? So I guess that's why they get so offended when they see people that are doing things or something that has been considered something that only black people can do and stuff like that. So I guess they're like, oh my God, that was supposed to be our thing. That's only something we have. We're the only people that can do that stuff. So why do you have it? Why are you doing it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like they like I feel like certain woke people or people in the movement were taught to love themselves off of the premise that every single feature that they have and they own is only seen in their race or in the black race, and that they were taught to love themselves based off of the fact that they are like individualistic and nobody's like them. And it's like, no, you shouldn't do that. You should love yourself just because you love yourself. You should love yourself not to like shit on other people, or you should love yourself not in the sense that like, oh, I love myself because can't nobody do what I do and I'm better than everybody and blah blah blah. No, just love yourself to love yourself. You shouldn't love yourself so to because like you have traits that can be seen as like a trait that you can use to shit on other people. Like just no. You know what I mean? Like I feel like when they say stuff like nobody's out there like us, we invented every single thing, we're the only people with these features and stuff like that, it creates this notion that they love themselves out of like a competitive way, as opposed to saying, you know what, I just love being black because I love it. They say I love being black because nobody else is doing it like us and we're the best of the best. And that to me is, you know, not an okay mentality to have, because you don't have to shit on other people in order to love yourself. You shouldn't be competing with other people. Just love yourself for yourself. Like, for example, my major is electrical engineering and I'm going to get an engineering job, right? And, you know, STEM jobs, especially engineering jobs, they pay very well. And like not to brag or anything because I'm literally like the most humble person I know, but I very much easily could be making like $100,000 in more or more in the next like 5 or so years as I move up my field. That's six figures and that's a lot more than other fields and stuff. So if someone came up to me and asked me why I chose engineering or electrical engineering or whatever, or engineering in general as my major, or why I wanted to be an engineer, I would easily just be like, you know what? Well, I love engineering. I love math. I love building things and it's fun for me. I like creating systems to help society and to contribute to the fast-paced world of technology that we live in. Technology helps with communication, with cell phones. It helps us with learning tools like iPads, and it does so much more. And I want to contribute to that society that's like a fast-paced technology growing society. That is an answer that focuses on me and why I like and enjoy engineering. But can you imagine if somebody else came up to me and was like, "Oh, Ashley, why do you want to be an engineer?" And I said something like, "Well," or like if they asked me like, "Why would you choose engineering as your major and blah blah." And like If I said something like, well, I want to be an engineer because nobody's out here doing it like me. I have the best career field because I help people build cell phones, computers, televisions, so on and so forth. Meanwhile, y'all other career fields can't do half of the shit that I do. People who majored in art are all y'all are gonna do is draw, and you can't draw for free. And you could easily draw for free at home. People who majored in writing, all you're gonna do is write petty articles about people and call it journalism. I do so much more than all these other jobs and all these other career fields. Good luck finding a job with y'all majors, and stuff like that. Like, I have a six-figure job. Ooh, I have a degree. I don't work at McDonald's. I'm better than all of you. And I actually did something with my degree in my life. You see how that second answer focuses on like being better than other people and shitting on others in order to lift myself up? See how in that answer I compared myself to others and I dragged other people down to lift myself up, and I bashed other people for not being like me? Exactly. In the second answer, it wasn't about I it wasn't about why I liked engineering for me. I based why I liked engineering around trying to prove that it is better than what everyone else is doing. I tried to validate myself by explaining how much better I was than everybody else, and that's not okay, because I should have just explained why I liked it as opposed to explaining why it's so much better than everything else. That is exactly how I feel about pro black fake woke, or whatever the woke crowd or whatever people do, like, or what they sound like when they say like, I love being black because everybody wants to be black, everybody's tanning their skin to be black like us, everybody wants to be like us, we invented big lips, big butts, and flat asses is the black feature, and people are paying surgeries to look how we look, we is popping, and when and like, who wouldn't want to be like us, and we're the goats, and we're ordained figures, and blah blah blah, and like, we're so much better than everybody else, period. Like, what? No. Just love yourself, love your blackness because you want to love yourself, and just love your blackness and let that be that. I'm a black woman and I love myself because I love who I am and I love what God made me. I love the skin I'm in and I love and accept the race and skin that I'm in. That's it. I'm not saying I love being black because white people are jealous. LOL, you wish you were me. You would never have my features, and I'm the only one who have this feature, and that makes me feel individualistic and I'm better than others. Like, no. I love me for me. I love being black because I love just being black. I love who I am and stuff like that. I love me because I love me and I feel comfortable enough and confident enough to love myself, and I don't need to put other races down to lift myself up. I don't need to drag other races down to feel better about my own race. The only person who would do that is an insecure person. Period. I remember one time before I deleted my Twitter, one time on Twitter, I saw someone say on the internet, they were like, "Oh, I hope my great grandchildren, when they come on the internet one day, like years and years from now, I hope that they don't have to show pictures of themselves to prove that they're black, and I hope that they only date black kids so that way they don't have to like, what did they say, ruin the bloodline, what is it called, um in what is it called, like taint the bloodline or infiltrate the bloodline or whatever the fuck that means." And there were so many other people that were saying stuff like, "Oh, I agree, I totally agree, it's so sad that so many biracial people are like trying to like upload their grandparents and stuff like that just to prove that they're black. My black kids could never, they're only going to date black kids, I don't want them dating white people so their kids don't come out like looking not black," and blah 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 and stuff like that. And I guess they were talking about like in reference to like how some biracial people, like, there's, if they're really light, they'll upload their parents to show that they're black. And then so I guess they were talking about that, and they were like, I hope my grandkids will never have to do that, that's why they need to only date black people and blah blah blah. And it's just so sad that like people care so much about what people come out looking like, and people care so much about who is and isn't black and stuff like that. And it's just really a sad thing to see. Like, if someone's black, they're black, they don't have to prove that to you. And I remember I've even seen people call biracial black people biracials, like as it like, and when I say biracials I mean like in terms of how it's spelled, like BYE, like bi, like goodbye, like biracials, BYE racials. I've seen people say that online. They'll say biracials, like goodbye biracial type of stuff and shit like that. And it's like, Tweets like that or Twitter threads like that scare me, that to think that so many people think like that. And it was such a terrible tweet. And it had like 13,000 likes. 13,000 people that think it's like funny and shit. And it's not. First of all, biracial people can't help how light they look. Like they literally can't help it. Like it's not fair to question other people's blackness, and you can't just question people's blackness and then drag them for trying to prove it to you. Like who does that? And also in the thread, she was also saying like, "Oh, thank God I came out looking black, and thank God I'm visibly black, unlike y'all," and stuff like that, and trying to like shit on people who don't quote unquote look black or like look like who like look ambiguously racially ambiguous, so you couldn't entirely tell, kind of like Rashida Jones. Like she was like, you can't, like she was basing like all of herself was saying like, oh, thank God I'm not like that person, thank God I'm not like that person, to like lift herself up. Bro, if you love the way you look, just love the way you look and love your ancestors for this fact that you love the way you look and you love your ancestors, and just let it be that. Let it be that. Why do you have to shit on other people and other biracial people and other stuff, or lighter people, because people are constantly dragging them like, oh, are you black or not? And then they prove their blackness and they're like, oh, that's so sad. Thank God I'm not like that. Thank God people can visibly see that I'm black, unlike y'all. It's just wrong. Like, who says that to people? It's just so fucked up to me. I see a lot of younger kids focusing on black people being better than other races, especially like the younger woke crowd. You know what I mean? Like it's great to like talk about like pro blackness, but I just don't agree with us talking about it in the sense that like we're better than other people, because nobody's better than anybody. You know, like I know so many like people in their youth like focusing on black people being better than other races, and I just don't like that. Like there's all these memes all over the internet from quote unquote black Twitter about being better at sports, smarter, ordained by some like God, being the quote unquote chosen one, how melanin has magic powers and how our skin is better than others, and so on and so forth. And that's not okay. We can celebrate ourselves without bashing other people. Like we can lift ourselves up without being conceited. Also, if black people are trying to paint this picture that they're better than other people, then that means that like they have to be like different than other people. And at its core, the belief system that black people are different than other people is, to me, an inverted form of racism, because that means that like the whole point of the woke movement is to prove that we're equals. So if we try to talk about how we're better than other people, then that takes away from like the point that we were trying to do, that we're equal. We're not any better or any worse, we're just equal. So it's like we're recreating this very system that we said we wanted to fight against, that we're different than other people, and we're not. Just because you're trying to prove a point that you're different in a better way doesn't negate the fact that you're trying to prove that you're different. And it's not okay, you know? Racism is only going to get worse if people act like this. Like, we hated when white people treated us like they were better than us. So why should we as black people be okay with acting like we're better than them? Racism is only going to get worse if we do this. Like, and honestly, Twitter, like when I was on there, I don't know what stage it's in now, it was the worst echo chamber of them all. And as a black person, back when I had a Twitter 3 years ago, every time I disagreed with like a popular black topic, I get labeled as like a betrayer of the black community, and I get labeled with names like Coon and Uncle Tom. It's so annoying. Excuse me. Us black people are not a nihilist, and we don't have to agree on the same issues. And also it's annoying because black people are so quick to take a stand against generalizations towards black people and say, oh, not all black people are like that. Then they turn around and generalize all white people as if all white people are the same, and they're not. White people nor black people should be generalized. Nobody should be. There are like a lot of just sentiments that I do not share with other like quote unquote woke black people as a black person. And honestly, I just keep it to myself in person or online back when I was on Twitter, because I don't feel like having the argument. I just don't have the energy to entertain it. There's certain shit that other woke people say that I simply don't agree with, but I don't disengage. I don't engage with them. I would just disengage with arguing with them because it's not even worth it anymore. That's why I save all of my sentiments for like, here, So yeah. Yeah, so like I was called a coon and an Uncle Tom and stuff on Tumblr and Twitter on several occasions just because my views were different than that of other black people or other woke people and stuff. Like to them, I guess being black is what your personality consists of and not what your skin color or not even skin color. Or what as opposed I guess to them being black is what your personality consists of as opposed to what your racial identity or ancestry consists of. You know, that's why when they see someone who's black and doesn't have the same ideals, they view them to not be black. That's why they think stuff like braids and black sense and tan skin make them black. So they get offended when they see stuff like that be to other people on other races because to them that's what makes a person black. It's ridiculous. And honestly, like I said, I get the discourse behind calling out like and I like okay, in terms of like the Coon and Uncle Tom stuff, I get the discourse behind like calling out black people who spew out like anti-black ideals because like why discriminate against your own people? I get it, but it's like you're not a coon just because you don't agree with what like the wokesters say. I used to get into arguments about it, but I myself don't even bother getting into the conversations anymore just to save myself time because I don't feel like arguing. I would rather spend my time speaking my opinions to like-minded people, like people on this podcast, as opposed to like arguing with dimwits all day. Thank God I deleted my Twitter. It's like when do people just get up? Like, how do you just get up and kick people out of the black community just because you said so? Who are you to tell someone that if they're black? Who are you to tell someone if they're black or not? Are you like the black community club bouncer? Like, are you the bouncer for like our community as black people? Are you the mayor of the black community and everyone who is accepted into the black community has to go through you first? Like, who are you to me? Like, or who are you to anybody? It's ridiculous. And in addition to the point that I said about like how like people should love themselves just to love themselves and shouldn't love themselves to shit on other people, I've seen certain people who make being black a competition. Like I've seen monoracial black people. Oh, by the way, monoracial means you're one race. So a monoracial black person is a black person that is only black because mono means one, but bi means two. So a biracial person is two races. Is a biracial black person is two races, black and another race. But a monoracial person is a person that is one race. And so yeah, a monoracial black person is a black person that's completely black. A biracial black person is a black person that's black in another race. But yeah, just to point that out because I know that I don't have entirely American listeners. I've seen monoracial black people bash people who are biracial and brag about brag about how like they have no white blood in their family and stuff like that, unlike biracial people and stuff like that. And I don't get that. Like, how do you brag about the fact that you're quote blacker unquote than other people? That's so weird. Like even I'm a monoracial black person and I would never do that to a biracial black person? Like, oh hey, look at me, I'm blacker than you. It's not a competition. Like the fuck? Like what? I feel like black people who do that have an inferiority complex. Like I know people that say stuff like, "Oh, both my parents are black. I love that for me," as if like that's like a rite of passage or something. They think they're so much better than biracial people because both of their parents are black, and it's like it's ridiculous. And on the contrary to that, I've also seen biracial people who think they're better than monoracial people because they're like, oh, like I have the good hair and stuff like that, and I'm mixed with partially white, so I'm prettier than other darker people, or I'm prettier than monoracial black people. Like I've seen biracial people bash monoracial black people, and I've seen monoracial people bash biracial black people. I've seen it both ways, and honestly, I just think it's so stupid. Like being black is not a competition, and you do not need to lift yourself up by bringing other people down. For what? Like before, like I just think it's crazy. Like all the divisions in our community, I just think it's ridiculous. Like people say uplift all black people, but now it's like, oh, some people bash biracial people to uplift monoracial people. Some people bash monoracial black people to uplift biracial black people. You know what I mean? So it's like before everybody was all, oh, we're proud to be black. We're rooting for everybody black, like Issa Rae said. Now there's all like people are making all these subdivisions for blackness and black people. everybody's like, oh, I'm blacker than you, and blah blah blah, or oh, I'm prettier than you because I'm black in another race and stuff like that. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's an inferiority complex. Like, anybody that has to bring someone else up, has to bring someone else down to lift themselves up, has an inferiority complex. Because why do you feel the need to brag about how black you are, or whether you're not black, or whether you're black in something else, or whether you think that's better than being just black, or whether you're completely black and you think that's better than being biracial and stuff like that? Like, what is that? Since when are there different degrees to blackness? Why can't people just love themselves instead of reinventing ways to feel better about themselves by dragging others down? You can't just love yourself without making other people feel horrible about themselves. Other people can't help how they are. They can't help the fact that they're how they are. Biracial black people cannot help the fact that they're half white and something else. And monoracial black people should not bully and bash them because they have whiteness in them in addition to having blackness in them. And monoracial black people cannot help the fact that they're fully black and have like dark skin, or not all, but some um have like darker skin and like coily hair and stuff like that. And biracial black people should not bash them for that either. Nobody should be bashing anybody. Like, you know what I mean? People can help how they were born. You don't have to make people feel like shit over something that's not their fault. It's like you cry when someone made you feel like shit over you being a certain way, which is something that's not your fault. So why do you feel the need to rub it in other people's space? Like, why do people feel the need to, like, the thing about like something that made me feel away, the thing about like people like, oh, y'all have white moms and I have a black mom, ha ha, in your face and stuff like that. I've seen like monoracial black people dragged by racial people for having white moms and stuff. Why make them feel like shit over something that's not their fault? But yet you cry when someone makes you feel like shit over something that's not your fault. So why do you feel the need uh to be blacker than others? Why do you feel the need to rub it in everyone's faces that you're blacker than them? Why do you feel the need to stand out against other biracial black people in that sense? People think being black is a competition, and it's sad. It's sad. Like, for what? And I've also seen like people like in the past, I've seen biracial people like brag about the fact that they're not ugly and dark skinned, and thank God that they got white in their family and they're prettier than their darker counterparts, like as if it's a competition. Like, regardless, like, I just don't like all these subdivisions in the black community. I think it's just disgusting. And I think we're all black, we're all beautiful. And like I said, if people want to have a conversation about colorism and about the differences that lighter and darker people face, that's definitely a conversation we can have. But people don't have to be jerks to other people just because they're different, or like somebody might have a white parent and a black parent, and another person might have two black parents. Like, we don't need to bash each other. You know? Something that I once saw that kind of pissed me off is like, I saw on TikTok also, I saw people saying, LOL at all of the biracial people that upload pictures of themselves to prove that they're black. I don't need a DNA test or pictures of my parents to prove it. Nah, 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 nah. Girl, so what? Is being black a contest? Some people just came out a little paler than others, and then they're like, hey guys, I'm black. And people be like, we don't believe you. And then they have to upload their parents or pictures of their parents on TikTok to prove it. But it's like, why are you sitting there saying, LOL, can't relate, and bragging at them for what? Like, being black is not a contest. So what, you think you're better than other people just because you have two black parents or something? Like, what is the, like, what? For what? Even on TikTok, I saw another girl. Speaking of people thinking that being black is a competition, I saw another girl that was talking about how all these black creators and stuff like follow each other, and how they're all in like this group and stuff. And she was talking, she ended the TikTok with this. She was like, haha, you're not black, bitch. Nah, nah, nah. We're black and you're not, and stuff. Like, who cares? You can't just uplift yourself. You have to drag everyone else down with you and make people who aren't you or your skin color feel bad? For what? For what? To all the white people listening to this, or to all the black people listening to this, white or black, that have ever like been made fun of online, or saw like a gut-wrenching tweet that affected you and hurt your feelings and made you feel bad for being your race, or even the biracial people. Honestly, I'm sorry you had to go through that. And it's fucked up that random strangers online can make you feel a certain way. It's fucked up. And you shouldn't have to feel that way. And to whoever saw anything about themselves online that made them feel like shit, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Truly, I am. Truly. Honestly. I mean, certain things I think people just make up to feel better about themselves. They don't have the balls to love themselves naturally, so they shit on people to feel better about themselves and they want to feel superior to others. And that's all that makes them feel confident in themselves. So they shit on other people for the sake of their self esteem. How can you say, "Oh, everyone who isn't like me, I feel bad for you" and shit like that? Like what? If you were confident in yourself and you lived in you're confident in your life and you as a person and all this other stuff and who you are fundamentally, then why do you need to bring others down to lift yourself up? For what? Like what is the reason? And before I close this last point, the last part of this point out, I also want to say one thing. I've seen like a lot of sentiments online about people that say black people who like don't hang out around like what's the lack of for lack of better word, urban black people, or I guess like not hood, but just maybe hood. I don't know. Or I don't want to say like ghetto or ratchet. Like no, I don't want to say that. I want to say like people who feel uncomfortable around like urban black. I saw this TikTok that said black people who feel uncomfortable around, for lack of better word, urban black people are anti-black. And I mean, I've seen people say that online and stuff, but honestly, oh, this is what I wanted to say. I saw this TikTok about this woman who studied like human behavior and stuff like that, and she was a black person, and I really want to reiterate and point out what she said. So this is what she said. This like I'm just like paraphrasing what she said. This is what she said. People swear that black people who feel uncomfortable around like quote unquote urban black people are anti-black. And while sometimes that is the case, that's not always the case. It's because black people like that sometimes make it harder for other black people because we were teased about how we acted and people made us feel like we were othered. So they picked up on the fact that like those people who are like kind of like shyer around quote unquote urban black people or around other black people because they were taught from young, if you didn't talk a certain way, if you didn't walk a certain way, you didn't listen to a certain type of music, you didn't act a certain way, you were considered not black and you were othered and stuff like that. So like I see a lot of people say like, oh, if you're uncomfortable around your own people, you have anti-blackness, which is true for some black people, but for me it's a case by case basis. Regardless, I don't really care. Like just to talk about her point, I don't really care who grew up in the hood or grew up in the suburbs or not. I don't care like where you grew up or whether you're hood or not or urban or not or suburban or not or whatever you are, or I don't care like how you act or whatever. I really don't. But if you're gonna like other me because of how I grew up, then that's fucked up. Because I would never other another person because of how they grew up too. I really just wanted to bring that up in the whole point about like the blackness being a competition stuff. So yeah, that wraps up this point. Okay, and this should be about my I think my fifth point or so, I believe so. And this point has a little bit of different sub points within it, but yeah, my fifth point I think, which is about my final point with different sub points within it, is black people are not a monolith. Black people are not all the same. We don't all think the same. We don't all act the same. We are not all the same. You know, that's definitely going to be my fifth point. I have different sub points to talk about with this, but I'll just start off with that. We're not a monolith and we're not all the same. There is no groupthink in real life, and your race does not determine your personality. Your race does not determine your views on things. And I mean, well, your race can shape your views on things because it can shape how you're it can shape your experience given like your the things you have to go through as a POC and as a person. POC means person of color, by the way. So as a person of color and stuff like that. Um so it can definitely shape your experiences, which in turn can shape your personality, but your race does not determine your personality. And you know, there are stereotypes out there that make it seem like all black people are straight up thugs and that white people aren't as bad and stuff like that. And white people aren't as bad as black people and stuff. And that's not true. And I definitely disagree with those sentiments because that's racist. But something else I also don't agree with is the people who say stuff like, oh, well, if you're black, then I trust you more. Or if you're black, then you're much safer to me than non black people and stuff like that. And like, I get the people who like, they've been through so much discrimination around non black people that they feel more comfortable around black people. I get that. But you being a black person or a white person is not to me what determines whether you're a good person or a bad person and stuff like that. Like I have to see who you are as a person to determine your personality and your characteristics and stuff like that. Like I have to see who you are as a person. I can't just like determine whether someone's good or bad depending on whether they're black or white. Like in order for me to determine whether you're like a good or bad person or whether you're cool or not, I have to hang out with you and view your personality and your mentality on things. I can't just trust or not trust you just because you're the same race as me or because you're a different race as me. And I don't just hate you just because you're the same race as me or just because you're a different race as me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to trust you just because you're the same race as me, and I'm not going to hate you because you're a different race than me. But also, I'm not just going to trust you because you're a different race than me, and I'm also not going to hate you just because you're the same race as me. You know, like I don't view all black people as thugs and gangsters just because they're black, but I also don't view people as like goody two shoes just because they're white and vice versa. I don't view people as bad just because as bad horrific people just because they're white, and I don't view people as like automatically totally like completely awesome people with zero flaws just because they're black. You know what I mean? I look at everything with the same potential or capability to be good or bad regardless of race. I look at everyone with the same potential or capability to be good regardless of the color of your skin or your race or ethnicity or background. And I mean, I guess the reason why I feel this way is because I grew up around people who were nice people, but I also grew up around people who were shit people, regardless of whether they were black or white. I've met shitty white girls. I've met shitty black girls. I don't know why people think, like people on woke Twitter and stuff, or woke Tumblr, or woke people in general think like all black people are just straight up angels and all white people are just straight up devils. You know what I mean? Like even when I was in like 2018, I think like in college, um, I worked I had a job on weekends near my college, and the demographics in that area were I mean it had everybody, but it did have like white people as the largest like amount of like people, but it did have other races as well. Like it had black people, Latinos, Asians, Middle Easterns. It had everybody, but white people was like the predominant in the area, even though the school itself was a HBCU. But HBCU means historically black college or university. But you know, consequently, okay, I'm getting a little sidetracked, but consequently, even though UMES was predominantly black, I actually saw obviously I saw majority black people there, but I actually saw like pretty much every race there, which was interesting. But anyway, that's that's besides. Well, I mean, interesting in a good way in the sense that like you know we're all a diverse pot, mixing pot and stuff like that. Interesting in a good way. I don't want to make you seem like I said, "Oh, interesting," like in a bad way and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The area that I worked at over the weekends, um, it was like 8 minutes from the college. It was like, mainly white, but it did have like not mainly, it was like I would say like 50% white and 50% everything else, every other race and stuff like that. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is um where I worked at, the demographics were there were like 50% white and 50% everything else. And when I worked over there, I experienced rude customers and they were white, and then also over the summer when I would come home to my family, and I went to school in Maryland and I live in Maryland, but the school I went to was 2 hours away from my home. So when I went home, I worked at this summer job at the department store that I told you I recently just quit. And the place that I worked at, it was like 50% black and 50% everybody else pretty much. So, yeah. So um like when I worked over there, I've met like rude black customers. You know what I mean? Like I've met people and they were black and they were rude. And like when I worked around majority black 50% or majority black people, I met black customers that were rude. When I worked around majority white people, I met white customers that are rude. You know what I mean? It's the point I'm trying to make is that there are assholes out there in the world, regardless of whether they're white or black. That's why somebody being white for me is not a trigger at all. Or I don't identify like looking at people and saying, "Oh, I trust you more because you're black," or "I'm scared of you because you're white." Because I've met toxic black people, I've met toxic white people, I've met toxic people, period. We're not even nihilists. We're not all like perfect and goody two shoes and angels and stuff like that. Like whether you're a good or not person is determined upon like who you are inside. That's what determines whether you're a good person or not. And also like the reason why being black and being woke and quote unquote means nothing to me in terms of whether you're a good or bad person is because there are people that I know personally that are shit people in general and are great social justice warriors. But just because they're good social justice warriors doesn't mean they can't be bad people. So I guess that's why someone being black doesn't really mean anything to me. Like you know what I mean? Like they're good activists but they're bad people. Like not bad people, but like just shit people. Like I know people who are like have annoying personalities or are mean or rude or were kind of like shitty people in high school, but you can definitely go online and see them, putting a black square or like BLM in their bio and stuff like that. Like they're great activists, they're great people, but they like they're I mean no they're great activists but as a person they're kind of like crappy and stuff like that. Being a good person matters more to me than like what the color of your skin is or what you like or your active well activism is important. Activism is it's for a good cause and stuff like that, but the point I'm trying to make is being a good person matters more to me than the color of your skin. I've met toxic white people. I've met toxic black people. I've met white guys that said shitty things about black girls. I've met black guys that have said shitty things about black girls. I've seen the whole 9 yards or the whole, like I've seen it all. So to me, we're not a nihilist, and I can't just determine whether I trust you or not just by looking at your skin color or your race. And also, in regards to the whole black people are not a nihilist thing, I really wanted to point this out. I don't think it's fair to black women with no thighs or no ass or no curves or who are like generally skinny or who have like a smaller ass and thinner thighs and like less curves and stuff like that. I don't think it's fair to them that like the whole like oh black features and like having a fat ass is a black thing and having a curvy body is a black thing. I don't think it's fair to thinner black women that stereotype is a thing. I really don't think that's fair. Like some black women are like curvy and like some I like not all but like like there are some black women that are curvy and then there are also black women that aren't as curvy. But sometimes um I've noticed like some black women say that like those curves and like the thighs and the ass and the lips and the hips and stuff like that, they say stuff like, oh yeah, as black women, we all have these features and blah blah blah. Y'all little skinny white girls are trying to go get surgery to be like us and to look like us and y'all envy us and stuff like that. I feel like that narrative is kind of like hurtful to thinner black women because essentially I feel like it creates this narrative that if you're not like thin, I mean, if you're not like thick or curvy, then like you're like missing something as a black person and stuff like that. I don't really think that's fair. Like I've seen lots of thin black women and they shouldn't have to feel like if they don't have a curvy body then they're just quote unquote not black. The criteria for being black does not include one's body shape. You can be a thick black woman, you can be a thin black woman, like regardless. Like, that's why I don't really understand why woke people claim that a big butt is a black feature. Like for starters, there are lots of, black women with big asses and there are black women with small asses. There are also lots of white women with big asses and white women with small asses. Your race doesn't determine the shape of your body. And also, I really don't get why people claim white women who get plastic surgery to get a bigger butt are quote unquote stealing black features and culturally appropriating black bodies, because fat asses is not something that black women like own. Literally any woman of any race could have a big booty. And if white women who get butt enhancement surgery are trying to quote unquote look black, then when black women get butt enhancement surgery, who are they trying to look like? There are plenty of black women who themselves who have gotten plastic surgery to get a bigger butt, like Miracle Watts, Bernice Burgos, Alexis Sky, Dream Doll, so on and so forth. Like, I don't understand why butt enhancement surgery is seen as something only white women do to quote unquote look black, when black women get butt enhancement surgery also. Like, I don't really like. I've seen white girls who have. I mean. I've seen white girls that have gotten their lips done, but I've also seen black girls who have gotten their lips done. I don't know why people are trying to push that surgery is just a white girl thing. I've seen women, I've seen pretty much every race, white, black, Latino. I've seen pretty much every race get like any type of like. I've seen pretty much every race, um, every woman of every race, and that has gotten surgery at some point. Like, I've seen women of all different races that have gotten surgery. So I don't really understand that point. I just feel like that point, like, we're not a nihilist. Not all black women look the same. So that point about it being a black feature, I feel like that's harmful to thinner black women. And it also doesn't make sense to me because I've seen people of all races, including black people and white people and Asian and and who else? Latinos and just everybody. I've seen women of every race get surgery, so I don't really understand that point. And also, I think I already talked about this, but the whole like black people can't be racist thing, I think that is bullshit. I think I've already said that before, but I really want to reiterate that is complete bullshit. The whole thing about the prejudice versus racist thing is nonsense to me. Like, and I get the conversations about privilege. Don't get me wrong. I get the conversations about privilege because racism towards minorities is real, and race relations between white people and black people is different in this country, especially considering the history of slavery. But bullying anybody is not okay, black or white. People in our community took the whole idea of black people can't be racist and just ran with it in the wrong direction. So now people in the black community feel like they can't perpetuate systems of oppression towards other minorities and even against their own community. I don't get why people think that all black people are just straight up saints and that are incapable of being racist. And you want to know what? Even if there was a way that black people can be racist, there are black people that are sexist or colorist or transphobic or homophobic and classist, and honestly, just all around ignorant and discriminatory to other demographics of people. So I don't get people who think that all black people are incapable of being discriminatory, period, because anybody can. And trust me, like, I don't know if I told you guys, actually I think I did. My parents are Cameroonian. They came to this country in their mid-20s. So I am a first generation African woman. My Cameroon is in West Africa. And honestly, as a Cameroonian, um just to let people know, like, in middle school, like, I met black people who were xenophobic. So that whole black people can't be racist nonsense, which I don't agree with. Okay, but they can be other things. They can be xenophobic. I know homophobic black men, and there are psychotic amounts of homophobia in the black community. Like, it's psychotic. I mean, there's psychotic amounts of homophobia everywhere, like I said before, but it's insane. So that, like, I don't get people who say that, because even if we can't be racist, we can still perpetuate discrimination and perpetuate bullying, and it's wrong, period. Anybody can do that, white or black, and it's wrong, period. And like, I hate when people just assume that a certain race is a certain way. And honestly, this goes for both black people who assume every white person is racist, and for white people who assume every black person is like a thug or uneducated or ratchet or ghetto and stuff like that. That's why I don't get black people who say things like, "Oh, I assume white people are racist until they tell me otherwise." Like, what, sweetie? That is 100% a personal problem. You cannot go around assuming that every white person is racist or is going to discriminate against you. And I get that, like, they could have had to deal with, like, microaggressions from white people, and that's why they're not okay with it and it's traumatizing. So I get that they're speaking from, like, their experiences with being black, and they do deserve to have their voices heard. But your triggers are your problems. You can't paint a brush of what all white people are like based off of your experience with one white person. Your triggers and your issues are your problem. I saw a quote online that kind of applies to this, which really comes into mind when I say this. This girl, and she was black, and I totally agreed with everything she had to say. She was black and she wore glasses, and she gave an example of how if you took the lens in her glasses and tainted them blue, then she would see the world as blue. It's not that the world is blue, it's just that her lens of her glasses are blue. And if you choose to see the world through a lens of racism, that's all you're going to see the world as. Like, and I'm not saying that we should ignore like racism when it's happening, because racism is around and it's in society and we do need to address that. But if you think every freaking little thing is racist and problematic, you are the problem, period. Like, and I see people saying that people who grew up in, you know, um white, like who grew up in like who are like white and stuff, grew up in a racist society and were taught to be racist. And we do live in a society that's like not good, and there are problematic things in society, and there is racism in society. And if you guys want to bring that up and talk about it, that's fine. But not all white people grew up to be racist. Not all white people are racist, and there are white people who went to all black schools and only grew up around black people and stuff like that. And some are racist and some aren't. It's a case by case basis. Like, yes, we can talk about like racism and the issues in society, but we cannot paint an entire brush of people as a certain way. We can't paint all white people to be racist, and we also can't paint all black people to be, this or that, or like thugs and gangsters. Like I think racism is wrong on both sides. You know what I mean? Like I even acknowledge like the things that that some like people say about like discrimination towards black women that do actually make sense. I like bring those up and I agree with them. Like there are reasons why black people rant, and I get that because they grew up around like problematic racist people that weren't black, or people that were white and that were racist. And I get that like they're ranting and raving about that because that's something to rant about, because racism is wrong. There are racist white people in the world, and honestly, fuck racist white people, fuck anybody that's racist, regardless of race. But yeah, I'm sorry that for any person listening to this that had to deal with that, I'm sorry. And I also don't want to make it seem like I only stick up for white people and not for black people, because I stick up for everybody. And like I said, both is wrong. But still, I just feel as though that like you can't just like look at an entire demographic of people and say, oh, they're this. Regardless, like I just think it's wrong to generalize all white people as racist, and I think it's wrong to generalize all black people as like dangerous and stuff like that. It's wrong on both ends. We're not a monolith, and everything is a case by case basis. So yeah, that's my opinion. Okay, so guys, that's pretty much all I have for today. Pretty much, that wraps up everything about what I had to say about this topic. Once again, thank you guys so much for listening in, and thank you guys for like staying with me even though I took such a long hiatus. Like once again, I am so sorry. Like I'm literally so sorry, but I explained why I took the hiatus or whatever. But like I said, from now on, it's gonna be bi-weekly posts, bi-weekly episodes, and stuff like that. I promise. So like I said before, feel free to like talk to me on whatever like social platform you're listening to, because this episode it has whatever platform you're listening to this on. In the description for the episode, it has all my socials linked to it, I think in the link tree, and like all of my social medias and stuff. So feel free to like DM me on Instagram or hit me up on TikTok or Facebook or whatever your like vice of social media is and stuff like that. I'm down for whatever. Feel free to chat with me and stuff like that about your thoughts. I'm also on YouTube if you want to leave comments as well, and feel free to check me out and stuff like that. Once again, thank you guys so much for listening in. Thank you for everyone that listens to me and likes what I have to say. I really love you guys so much. All right, thank you. See you guys in 2 weeks.